Hello and welcome back to my channel. It has been a while and we are welcoming ourselves to a new year or maybe just a new day, and today we're going to talk about making resolutions. So in the sewing community we don't just make resolutions, we make Re-sew-lutions. See what we did there? But what I'm going to talk about covers whether you want to make a resolution that talks about sewing, or honestly, I hope it will give you something to think about in terms of resolutions of other kinds as well. So let's get straight into it. I have got 5 top tips to help you make resolutions that will actually work for you. So here are the things you need to ask yourself. Number 1, what do you actually want to do and why? Might sound obvious, but if you think about it, if you for example, you want to make more clothes or you want to gain skills, those are 2 different reasons why you might want to sew, and one of them might make you want to sew more than another. You might want to take on a really long, slow project if you want to up your skills, compared to actually you want to just make more stuff, in which case it's about your output and making things faster or making a greater quantity of stuff. So sit down and think about, what is it that you actually want to do? And if you're trying to approach this and think about wider resolutions, then stuff like losing weight or getting fit, those 2 things are very different, and it's possible to get the 2 confused. So just have a moment and think about, what do I actually want to do? And big one, why? Okay, so number 2, have you tried before and did it work? Okay, so again, it might be really obvious, but it's worth asking yourself those questions. Did you make these resolutions this time last year, or this time last month, or this time last week? I think probably if it was a week ago, you might be judging yourself a little quickly. But have you made these resolutions before? Have you set out to do the same thing before? And if it worked, then fantastic, and maybe you just need to do the same thing again. If it didn't work, then what went wrong? Were you too ambitious? Were you not ambitious enough? Maybe you weren't actually setting out to do the thing you really wanted to do, so you didn't actually know the answer to question number 1 when you set the resolution. So of course you failed because it wasn't actually what you wanted to do. So question number 2 is that one. Have you tried before and did it work? And if it did, great, why? And if it didn't, okay, why not? Thing to consider, number 3, and this is something I think you should go off and do somewhere else, which is to take the 4 tendencies quiz from Gretchen Rubin's website. There will be a link down below and I'll put one on the screen as well. You may have heard of this. I picked it up from a sewing podcast called Love to Sew, which is very popular in the sewing community, so you may have heard of this as well. But it took me a while to get around to doing the quiz, because I'm not kind of a quiz sort of person, but my curiosity got to a point where I really wanted to find out about it, and it's brilliant. Okay, so there's lots of information on the website, but very briefly, the way that Gretchen considers why people do or don't stuff is about your tendency in decision making and keeping to your commitments or otherwise. And there are 4 types of people. You have got, I need to read these because I always get them wrong. There is the obliger, there is the questioner, there is the upholder, and there is the rebel. And each of those 4 types of people will find an internal or an external commitment more easy to keep to, or more likely that they will fail to it. So for example, the obliger, they will go with an internal or an external commitment. So whether you've just promised yourself or whether you've committed to do something with a friend, it'll work either way for those. So that's quite good. A resolution of any kind is going to be a relatively good tool for you. A questioner needs to know why. So the questions I asked before about what do you want to do and why, the why stuff is really important. So Gretchen talks about this. Basically, they will turn any commitment into an internal commitment if it's going to work. Okay, so they'll only commit to it and only really have a good likelihood of succeeding if they turn it into an internal commitment. The upholder is all about the external commitment, I think, if I've got that one right. So they need to, yeah, I might not have that one right. This is why you need to go to the quiz. The one I know the best is the one that I am, which is the rebel. Now, I am not a rebel in all spheres of life, but what it means, not by any means, what it means to be a rebel is that internal expectations and outside expectations kind of don't work. So you need to find another way of motivating yourself, which is maybe why I'm making a video about how to make resolutions, because I find it very, very difficult to make resolutions that work. In fact, the very act of saying out loud to somebody else, like you or just someone in real life, or of writing it down and just promising myself, that will pretty much guarantee I won't do the thing. I know that is seems ridiculous, and if you're an upholder or an obliger, you're going to be really confused by someone who could be that way. But yeah, I've found that out about myself. If I say, and you will, if you watch back my videos, if you've been watching for a while, the few times I have said this is what I'm going to do, quite often are the times when I'm strangely silent in the future, or I just come back and say, yeah, didn't do that one. And it really sabotages myself if I actually make an external or internal commitment to do it. So that's interesting to work with when you're wanting to make a resolution. So go away, do the 4 tendencies quiz. Hopefully you will find one of these that fits you innately, and it'll make you go, ah, okay, I get why this worked in the past, or I get why that didn't work in the past because I was going about it the wrong way. I found it really useful. Totally not sponsored by me, or, you know, I'm not being rewarded for telling you that. I just think it's a really good framework to have a look at, and it doesn't take long. Number 4. Okay, so if you've answered all those questions, you've thought about them, now you need to write your resolution, if you are going to write one. Okay, so if you're going to write one, and we'll get to why you might not want to in a minute, basically if you're a rebel like me, make sure it's realistic, make sure it's time bound, and make sure it's measurable. So if you're going to do a thing, then make it a realistic thing. So maybe not sewing 50 things in a month, or maybe not even 5 if your output is 1 every 2 months. Maybe that's not realistic. Maybe you need to set interim goals. I don't know. Make it time bound so you can measure when you've done it. Otherwise, maybe you'll be the kind of person that's like, oh, haven't done all the things yet, still haven't done all the things yet. Well, if you gave yourself 6 months and there's only a month past, it's okay that you haven't. And if you can, make it something that's measurable. So if we're talking about skills that you want to do, then think about how well, which skills and when by, and how are you going to know that you've done it? Because then you can give yourself a little yay or a big yay when you've done it, okay? And it'll be a great reward at the end, because you will definitely know you got there. Number 5, here are some alternatives to making traditional New Year's resolutions. Okay, I've touched on a little bit already, but first of all, does it need to be something that you'll do for the whole year? Maybe not. Could you break it down? So could you make a new month resolution? Will that work better for you? Or a new week resolution? Because, you know, lives change week by week. Doesn't have to be the whole year. So maybe break it down. Finally, think about, if we go right back to sewing, this is where I got to, okay? So think about why you actually sew. What, or your creative practice of any kind, what place does it have in your life? What does it do for you? Most of us, if not all of us, don't have to sew, okay? Unless it's your job, in which case, why are you bringing your work home with you? No, but unless it's your job, why do you sew? Is it because it's me time? That's how it is for me. Is it about your creative practice? Is it about saving money? Is it about making use of the things that you've got? So, you know, you've got a sewing machine, you've got a stash of fabric, and you feel obliged that you should make use of those. So first of all, if it was that, you need to go back and question, is the obligation actually going to motivate you, or is it going to be like a millstone around your neck? And if it is, you need to come at it from a different angle. But why do you sew in the first place? On those times, at those times when it's all going fantastically, you feel great, you're at your machine or you're at your cutting table, what is getting you there and what is making you feel good about all of this stuff? Pin that down and do more of that. And so that is where I am at with my own resolutions, which is I'm not making any. Not one, not even half a one, not even a quarter of one. There are no resolutions in my life. And I'll tell you why, and I've already told you partway why really, is that they just don't work. If I were to do a make 9 grid, which look beautiful, and this is by no means a criticism of other people who do this, because if it works for you, you should do it. It doesn't work for me at all. So if I were to do a make 9 grid, you could probably guarantee I'm showing you 9 things that I will never make. Even if I want to make them, it just doesn't work. So for me, when I sew, the times that I just described where it works really well is when I don't have any obligations. So a good way to put me off sewing is to give me a deadline, or when I commit to sew things for other people, which I do. It usually kills my passion stone dead and I have to really kick myself up the bum to get it done. But yeah, sewing for me is the space where I can do what I want, when I want, how I want to do it. And if I were to put a bunch of resolutions on the top of that, it would be killed stone dead. So there's no resolutions on this channel. It is a resolution-free zone. But if you want to make resolutions, I hope that this video has been helpful for you, and you should definitely go ahead and do it. If you don't want to make resolutions, then I hope I've given you a guilt-free space in which you can feel good about that, because either way, do what you want to do. This is a creative practice and we're supposed to have fun. On that note, I will say goodbye and I will be back really soon with another video. Thank you for watching. Bye.